Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, we're getting really close to getting the 3100 ready to be delivered back to the owner, Darren, but we do have a few things to fix before it's ready to go. Today what we're going to be working on is a chip. Now Darren put all the glass back in himself, and he slipped a little bit and chipped the paint right here on the edge, but on the other side. So we're going to get in real close on that, and I'm going to show you how to repair that chip so you will never see it again. Now, it happens, guys. I know Darren didn't mean to scratch it. He was being probably way more careful than I would have been, but it does happen. You slip, something moves, and you scratch or chip something. So let's jump in close. We'll take a look at that chip, and then I'll show you how I go about getting those repaired. So you really should never see them again unless you stare right at it. So let's get in here and get to work on this thing. Okay, here's the chip right here. We got a little scratch up here that's easy peasy, but there's the chip right there. Let me zoom in. I'm going to try to keep as close as I can so you guys can see everything I do, and try to keep it in focus. I think that's it about right there. So as you can see, we've got some primer showing, and then we have some kind of an eruption here where the clear and the base coat popped. So the first thing we need to do is get those chips that haven't fallen off yet, we got to pop them off, because you can't just glue those back down. Occasionally, if you if the whole thing is there, what you can do is lift it up carefully, mix up some clear, put it underneath like glue, and then push it back down, and then put some clear back over the top of it, let it dry, sand it and polish it, and you're good to go. But in this case, we've already got some missing chips, so what we're going to do is pop those off the rest of the way, and then expose all that, make sure we have a clean, sound area. Then we're going to mix up some base coat, and we're going to get it down inside there very, very carefully. So let's move over to the toolbox, and I'll show you some of the tools I use to get this done. Okay, one of the most important tools in doing this is a magnifying glass. So I have one that's less magnification, and this one's pretty strong, and it also has a light on it, so you can get down in there and really see, because the idea is to work microscopically, so you're not just blobbing paint in there and then putting clear over the top of it. We're actually surgically dropping color down inside that exposed area, and then once that sets up and we're happy, then we can get some clear on it. The clear is easy because we're going to sand it and polish it, but the color is the key on all of these chip repairs. So I have this. And then you can see I just got a paper clip, 2 paper clips that are straightened out, and one of my main tools is just a little straight pin, just a little tiny thing, and that allows me to get in there and kind of really get and pull those chips out and actually move the color around it to make sure it gets all the areas. So, and then lastly is just a cheapo paintbrush. I buy these at Harbor Freight. It's like a 10-pack. I don't know, it's a few bucks. It's almost nothing. I don't even clean them. I just chuck them when they're dirty. So this is what I really use, and this is all I'm going to use today, except for a little bit of paint and a little bit of clear. Okay guys, I've got myself a redneck macro lens made up here, and I'm going to actually do this looking through the camera because I'm using my magnifying glass to show you guys what's going on. So, and this is how I see it when I'm doing it. And so we're just going to see if I can get this done. It may be a little awkward for me to look through the camera and do this at the same time. And it is very awkward. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, see that one's loose right there. See how that's popping around? So we need to break that off. So, and the clear is still, flexible. So it's not just going to chip out real easy. So we obviously don't want it to tear. So we're going to bend it back on itself. Just like that. And so we pop that away. And you guys see how small this is. Here's the pin, if I can get that in there. Here we go. So there's the pin head. So that is just about the size of a pin head right there. And so you can see some deformity right here. I apologize for everything seems a little weird because I'm looking through the camera while I'm doing this just to show you guys how it can be done. So let's get up here. So we've got that little area right there, I think could be elevated. and I can't get my hand in here with the camera. So I'm going to pull the camera away, get that chipped out real quick, just like we did the other one, or investigate it, and then I'll bring you right back. I just can't get in there and get it done with at the angle, and the camera is, I mean, just inches away from this chip. So I'm just not able to do it and show you guys how to do it at the same time and make sure I do a good job. I can get in there, but I'm just not comfortable doing it like this. So I want to make sure I do the best job possible. So I'll bring you right back and we'll take a look at it, ready to go to get some color down inside there. Okay, we just about got it. I really hope this shows up in focus. So I got little bits elevated over here I don't like. See how that moved? So I want to make sure that chips away, because that means it's fractured and it's not, it's just holding on by the clear. The base coat is actually, or the primer is actually came loose. And let's see if I get in here. So you want to work not from inside out. You want to kind of put the pin and kind of push down and pry it away, try to break it away. Otherwise you could, you know, keep chipping this out forever because you got a pin up underneath it. So we are looking really good right there. I know it doesn't look good, but it will pretty soon. So I think we've about got it. I'm going to double check it all, and then we're going to mix up some blue. And I won't put the blue in full strength. I'll reduce it a little bit just so it wets out and gets down inside there really nice. And then if I need to put some more in, then I'll just do that unmixed. It'll be just straight color. And then once I'm sure that's in there really nice, then we can move on to the clear. Okay, we got it looking really good. Got it cleaned out real nice. Now it's time to get some color down inside there. Now I'm right-handed and I'm going to be doing this left-handed. So it's not, I don't know how it's going to go, but here we go. So I'm using the straight pin again, and I'm just going to lay it down inside there and just let it wet out. So this has a little bit of solvent in it, so it'll flow. I'm just trying to get some down in there. You see it's fairly thin, and what we want it to do is wick its way out to the edges. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Oh, that's a reflection, or if that's a little bit of primer showing right there. Okay, just like that. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to use a different, just almost 100% color, no reducer at all, and then we'll see how it looks, and then we can let that dry, and then we get some clear on it. Okay, that is dried pretty good. See if I can find my way in here. Now this is unreduced color. It might have just a tiny bit because I put it in the lid. Okay, so I dropped that in there like that. Now that's too much clear color. So you can see it sticking out there. So what I'm going to do is, now I've got it, you know, wetted throughout that whole thing. We need to get a little bit down here in the bottom. You can see a little white spot. So we're going to drag this down here. Make sure we're covered all the white of the primer. And then, once I push this around a little bit, to make sure it's touching everywhere and it looks good, I think we got a little spot right over here. Kind of drag that around, just like that. So we don't want the color to try to fill that void. In fact, we want as little color as we can to do the job, because we want that to be a crater when we're done, because we're going to put clear in there. So now that we've got it touching everywhere, I'm going to start removing the color. So I'm going to dip in there just like that, and then I got a paper towel here, and I'll just wipe off the pen, and then I'll go back at it again. Now sometimes I'll go too far and I have to put a little more color in there, but that's okay. And this will shrink as it dries. So you just got to be very patient. You take little tiny minuscule amounts at a time, and see how it's starting to look like a crater now? And that's a good thing. So we're going to get a little bit over here I want to get rid of. There we go, we're starting to look pretty good. And like I said, if I go too far, then I'll backtrack a little bit. I'm going to shade the light because the reflections are making it look kind of weird. Lucky my hands aren't shaking that bad today. I know it may look like I'm shaking a lot, but zoomed in this tight. Now I know that looks messy and it doesn't look good, but trust me, you guys are zoomed in super tight and we're not even halfway done yet. So just be patient. We're going to let that set up a little bit, and then I'm going to show you the next trick to get this done and make it look really nice. Okay guys, here it is right here, and the next trick is after it dries a little bit, take some masking paper, and what you're going to do is you're going to kind of sand that area so any of that blue that kind of curled up and got around the edges, we're going to kind of sand that off the clear. Now it's not going to want to stick to the clear and it's super thin, so what we're doing is we're just rubbing that off there, and that's going to clean that up real nice. And so there's no blue sticking up here, and since we're using our finger, it's actually going down inside that crater a little bit and getting the edges away, so when we drop the clear in, the clear is filling that whole void. So we're going to let this sit up pretty good. I'm going to give it at least a half hour, maybe longer, because we used unreduced color. And then we're going to mix up a little tiny baby batch, a super baby batch of clear, and get that void filled. And then we have to let it sit overnight before we can come back and sand it and polish that area. Okay, it's been about an hour, so it's all set up. And I've got a little tiny batch of clear mixed up. And I'm going to use one of the paper clips to get the clear on there. If I can do this without screwing up here, going through the camera. So we're not using a paintbrush because it's just it's way too big for what we're doing here. So what I want to do is just like the color, we want to make sure we drag it all over the place. We had a little scratch up there. So I want to walk that up there. Now I mix this up with just color and hardener. I did not put any reducer in it because we're not spraying it. Okay, so we just want to dab it in there. We don't need reducer because we can do full strength and not worry about it. In fact, you can see it sagging there a little bit. So I'm going to remove some of this off the side. And this is all going to get sanded, so it's not a big deal, but obviously I don't want any more on there than I need. So we're just going to keep kind of cleaning this up. I'm going to let that set a little bit. And we're going to wipe it on the edges here. And all that does is just keep me from having to sand more of it off. It's not that big a deal because we have a little scratch right next to it, so we're going to have to sand this whole area and polish it. So we're going to wipe that just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let that set. It's hard for me to tell, but it looks like it needs just a little bit more because it looks like it's drooping down. So we're going to lay that up there. And sometimes you have to kind of walk it up a little bit and then let it settle back down. We don't want to introduce any bubbles into it or anything. Okay, so that's looking pretty good, but I think it's a little, it's still, if I look, yeah, it's still not high enough. So we're going to have to let that set a little bit. What I'll do is I'll cover the clear up, make sure it doesn't set inside my little shot glass thing I've got it mixed in. We're going to let that dry a little bit, stiffen up, and then we'll put another little drop in the middle. And it's better to have it too high than too low because we don't want to have to redo this again. So we're going to build it up, and then what we're going to do later is carefully sand it back down flush, and then we'll be able to polish it. Okay, I'm stopping the audio right here. I'm about to add a second coat out of the same batch about 15-20 minutes later. What I should have done was just let this dry completely and not rush it. And so what I ended up doing here is adding more clear, and I actually introduced bubbles into this is what I think, because I had to fight them the rest of the whole project. So let it dry overnight. And then sand it and then clean it really well and then apply another coat if you need to, and you'll be able to tell right away since you sanded it. So don't rush it like I did. That was my mistake here. I don't know what I was thinking, but it's better just to let it set and then harden all the way, sand it, and then apply more as needed. Okay, so here we go. This is 2 pieces of tape with a hole cut in it, and there's the drip right there. So what I'm going to do is just use a little tiny block and some 600 grit, and then I'm going to sand it, and then I'll peel 1 layer of tape off, and then I'll sand it some more until it's flush, and then we'll peel the whole thing off and see where we're at. But I really can't do that with the camera in the way, so I'll bring you back as soon as I'm done. Okay guys, the tape trick worked. You can see I've already peeled it off and sanded some more around it, so it's looking pretty good. Little white spots right there were actually bubbles in the clear, but we still have some sanding to go, so I think those will sand out. So I'm going to get some 1500 grit and do it off camera because I need to be in close to get this done. And we've got a scratch up here I need to sand out as well. So I'll get some 1500 out, get a little spray bottle, and we'll get this smoothed out real nice and get those 600 grits scratches out of there for sure. And we'll get that little scratch sanded out. And then hopefully we can move over to polishing here real quick. If not, we'll have to mix up some more clear and lay some more clear on there. Okay guys, I've got it sanded pretty well. You can see it's a little bit darker than the surrounding paint. I think once we get it polished out, it's not going to be very noticeable. It's obviously better than a white chip showing. Now there's some air bubbles right there that I sanded through, but I can't sand them all the way out. Now those little air bubbles, they were popped when I sanded them, and then they were full of sanding debris. So they look like little white dots because they were full of sanding debris. So I had to take a little tiny brush, if I can get that in there, this little tiny brush here, and I just had to put some water down in there and scrub and keep scrubbing and cleaning until those little tiny pits were completely clean. And now it's drying up, and so I'm going to mix up some clear. We'll dab it in there and then let it set, and we'll just do this again. Okay guys, it's the next day. I got some clear on it yesterday. It's super flat right there, so I'll use the block and some 1500 and just smooth that out real nice. I'll bring you in close when I'm done, and then we'll get to work on some polishing. Okay guys, got it all sanded smooth. You can see it's a little bit darker than the surrounding paint. That's part of the problems with laying paint in. When you spray metallics, they lay down differently than if you just kind of drop it in like we did. But it looks way better than a big old chunk of white primer sticking out there. And once we get it polished and out in the sun, we'll be able to get a better view of how this chip repair turned out. I can't really polish with the camera this close, so I'm just going to back it away and get some polishing done, and then we'll take a close look at it. Okay guys, here it is out in the sun. Try to get some angles on it for you. It is right, where is it? Right there. There's the repair right there. So that's the idea, not be able to see it. So really, if you do it like I did it, probably you're going to be the only one that knows it's there. So, and that's the whole idea. So you get chips, get them fixed as soon as possible so you don't have any other issues. Okay guys, that pretty much wraps up this video on getting that little tiny scratch and chip out of the paint right by the window. It came out a little darker than I'd like, but that happens with metallics sometimes when you lay them in like that. Solid colors, they're super easy because there's nothing floating around in there. It's all the same color. Just make sure you fill that little low spot just enough to get it to cover, and that leaves plenty of room to lay in the clear to build that back up. You saw it took a couple of days where we had to put some clear in, let it dry, sand it, put some more clear in. It's not perfect, but you really don't notice. You guys saw, you have to stare right at it and get right up on top of it to be able to see it. And that's the whole idea. You're going to get rock chips, especially if you enjoy your car and drive it around. This way you can get in there and fix them before they get full of grease and dirt and wax, and then get the clear on it, polish it out. Nobody will know it was there. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and keep those comments coming. And the very next video should be this truck going home. We got to put the headlights in and a few other small things. I won't shoot video on that, but we're really close to getting this truck delivered.